This is CNN Breaking News.
We have major breaking news into CNN. 3 sources tell CNN that according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment, the U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back a few months.
That's right. So this is an assessment that actually is out from the Defense Intelligence Agency. That is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it was based on a battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. CENTCOM after the strikes, according to one of the sources. Let's go to CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand, who has this exclusive new reporting. This is to that question that has been asked about how much damage has been done. This is a real question. It's also a political question that has been to something that Donald Trump.
Remember, what did this accomplish? What did we accomplish here? We spent of healthcare units. Okay, every military action should be every metric of looking at military action should be judged by how many healthcares did it cost? Okay, even from the American perspective, how many healthcare units did we waste on this? What were the military objectives here? Targeting the Iranian enriched uranium, targeting the Iranian nuclear facilities, and obviously the major objective here is to do regime change swiftly and efficiently. Create popular mobilization, take advantage of any sort of sectarian infighting that takes place in Iran. None of those happened. Not a single one of these military objectives were accomplished. And in the process, hundreds of Iranians were killed. Almost 30 plus Israelis were killed in the tit for tat in the back and forth between Iran and Israel. Israel's air defenses looked not so great, and that is with the entire Western world backing Israel. So what happened? Nothing. What could have happened, on the other hand, is Trump telling Israel not to do this, stopping Israel from doing this, and actually engaging in some kind of negotiation and lowering sanctions, lowering the nuclear sanctions with Iran, and have a much more reasonable, much more diplomatic Iranian leadership get success out of this negotiations process and go back to the JCPOA, go back to the commitments that they had to the initial JCPOA agreement that was set up under Barack Obama. That would have actually made Trump look good. But he relied too much on the Israeli side driving the process. He gave the steering wheel to Israel, and Israel is an insane, belligerent country. They're psychopathic. And here we are. Now you have now you have an Iran that is angry and understandably resentful, that is slated to leave the International Atomic Energy Agency, who might actually work towards nuclear proliferation down the line in an act of determining sovereignty, in an act of creating some semblance of protection for themselves. None of this had to happen.
Trump has been sort of dealing with here recently. What
a more
are you learning,
unified
Natasha?
Iranian population as well.
Yeah, look, Brianna, this is the first assessment that we are getting that the U.S. intelligence community has found about the battle damage that resulted from those U.S. military strikes on these.
This is crazy, bro. MOPs were created specifically for Fordow. There have been around 20, probably more, to be honest, MOPs that have ever been created, and the U.S. dropped 18 of them on Fordow on Saturday, and it was a tactical failure according to American intelligence. Maybe, dude, let me say something. Let me say something to you. Enshittification, okay? Have you heard of it? Have you heard of it? I think capitalism is so self-defeating that maybe it even ruins the American military.
These 3 Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. And as you said, it was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it is worth noting that it is a very early assessment. The strikes were only a matter of days ago.
Lockheed is quiet quitting, dude. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, quiet quitting. Boeing is already quiet quit. We know that already. Too much DEI, too much corner cutting, cost cutting.
and the intelligence community is still gathering intelligence. They are still working to come up with a full, comprehensive picture of what exactly happened here. But based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now, we presented this information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment, but she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted..."
Dude, this is so lame. Oh my God, this is so soy. This is so unimaginably soy. Dude, incredible. Incredible soy right. Incredible things are happening on the soy right. You're hurting the feelings of our big, beautiful pilots. I can't wait for them to even mention that the pilots are women. It's gonna happen. Trust me. Okay? How dare you hurt the feelings of our big, beautiful pilots by leaking the intelligence community's assessment that their strikes was actually not successful? How dare you? I do worry that this kind of quote unquote leak might be coming from the hardliners that want, like, the more hawkish elements within the State Department that want to continue bombing Iran. I don't know. That are just like super invested in Israel's ambitions here. That is something that I worry about a little bit. Taking advantage of Trump's insecurities to be like, oh, you didn't do it? Well, I'll show you. I'll do it right this time. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
A perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their target.
Like, I don't know if we're having a serious conversation here for a brief moment. Those brave, beautiful warfighter pilots, okay, are war criminals. What they engaged in was a war crime, okay? I know that this is a scary thing to broach for a lot of Americans, but like, it doesn't matter if it's an American pilot or an Israeli one doing this. When you fly into a foreign nation's airspace with the express purpose of blowing up their nuclear facilities, what you are doing is a war crime. What those pilots were doing, even the female one, okay? Girl boss war crimes. That's what it is. I like that we don't even think about that. I like that that is not even a matter, that is not even something that's in consideration here. Like, no one is even entertaining the notion that, like, this is actually, one, an act of war, and two, a war crime. I truly feel crazy about, didn't the UN guy say it was legal though? Wait, what do you mean? What? Anyone that sanctions a tactical first strike, anyone that sanctions a tactical first strike against nuclear facilities is insane. Okay, there is no world in which this is appropriate or allowed, and it probably wasn't a UN guy. It probably was a NATO guy. Yeah, it was. It was Rutte. He wasn't the UN guy. He's the NATO General Secretary, and of course he said that. That's NATO. That's not the United Nations. Here, I'll give you an example from the not so distant past. Russia was engaging in a battle near a Ukrainian nuclear power plant. Do you remember how terrified everyone was that Russia was doing this? The dynamic doesn't change when America does it, because the actual war crime here is hitting a nuclear power plant. And it did get hit. Yeah, Zaporizhia got hit. Like, numerous nuclear power plants were under fire in the process. That doesn't change when it's like the receiving, on the receiving end, you have not Ukrainians, but like Iranians. You know what I mean? That's like not allowed or appropriate.
its total obliteration. Now, it is worth noting here that there has been dissent, I should say, within the intelligence community, within the defense community, about just how much of an impact these massive bunker buster bombs would actually have on Iran's nuclear facilities. It was far from certain, given that these bombs had never been tested in an actual combat scenario, whether they would actually penetrate those very, very deep underground tunnels that lie underneath these nuclear facilities. And what we are told is that as of now, this Defense Intelligence Agency assessment, it does conclude at this point, again, it is still very early, that those underground facilities.
Yeah, NPT is completely destroyed since a country doing everything right got its nuclear facilities attacked. Why most nuclear armed nations even did not condemn it. From here on, the NPT means nothing is also correct. Like, what good is any of this? What good is the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, also known as the NPT? What good is that but a piece of paper to wipe your ass with if all of the signatories are openly stating that this is actually very cool that America hit a country's nuclear facilities that was actually abiding by the same treaty? What are we doing? This is what I mean. If it's the rule of the jungle, then, and it's might is right politics, then everyone has to get more militant. Do you understand how this makes the world a less safe place? Do you understand how America's belligerence and Israel's belligerence in the global stage is making the world a less safe place? Now, obviously, the other side of the story is that all of these treaties and all of these conventions are mere suggestions, or rather, rules and regulations that the Western world has created specifically to bully whoever they've declared their adversaries, while they themselves violate all of those rules in the process of enforcing these regulations and restrictions upon others. That is how it's been in perpetuity. That is what Western dominances look like. And now that America's time is passing as the singular sole global hegemonic superpower, other countries that are regional powers are also themselves violating these rules. Also, yeah, this was the other thing. Brigadier General Ismail Qaani, commander of the IRGC Quds Force, is alive and well. He appears in public at Iran's victory celebrations in Tehran, beating widespread allegations that he was killed by Israel. Yo, Brigadier General's going to be older than 23. Ironically enough, Iran has the opposite issue, where in Israel, everyone is like 18 years old and they're Brigadier Generals because they have rank inflation. Iran has a much older. Iran has a problem with like their Brigadier Generals being too old. Yeah, they have a gerontocracy themselves. Like there's no comfortable middle ground here where like everyone is like 83 years old in a position of power in Iran. Meanwhile, in Israel, it's like it's all inexperienced 18-year-olds. This is very similar with how Germany invaded and annexed Austria, and that led to appeasement. It was one factor, the World War II starting. The main difference is now that America is the one attacking and invading, the other countries are appeasing us. Yeah, no, I think that if the only analogy we have at our disposal is World War II, then yes, the sad state of affairs is that we are the Nazi Germany now, with nukes and also complete military dominance around the globe already. Like that is the sad state of affairs for sure. They've turned Fox News into a podcast studio. Lol. Wait, what? CNN intel assessment contradicts Trump. MSNBC ceasefire hanging by a thread. Fox News. Is Trump a Mount Rushmore level president? This is awesome.
And refuges, including the highly enriched that everyone has been talking so much about, those are largely intact. Now, of course, this does stand at odds with what President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have been saying in recent days about the impact of these U.S. military strikes. Of course, President Trump said it was totally obliterated, and Secretary Hegseth did as well. And he actually also provided CNN with a statement And he said that, quote, based on everything we have seen, and I've seen it all, our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and worked perfectly. The impact of those bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran. So anyone who says the bombs were not devastating is just trying to undermine the president and the successful mission. Now, our sources did emphasize here that there was severe damage that was done largely to the above ground structures at these nuclear sites. And so there was damage done, of course, by these massive bombs. But the core components of the nuclear program, we are told, they are.
How are you going to call yourself a professional streamer while letting this issue go on for weeks? Because I live in the United States of America where infrastructure is purposely done and there's not much I can do about it, even though we have tried to fix the problem. And I've literally brought in technicians here to fix the problem. And yet the problem has not been fixed. Unless I just I don't know, somehow contact Hezbollah to lay down miles of fiber optic cables like they have in Lebanon, I'm not going to be able to fix this issue on my own, unfortunately. You know?
Are largely intact, and it only set the program back by a matter of months. Boris Brianna.
Natasha Bertrand, please stand by.
That is true, by the way. Hezbollah does have fiber optic cables. That's not even a joke.